Welcome back, and honored to have with us, especially on this day as we head into the 4th of July weekend, our good friend Mark Meckler. Mark is the president of the Convention of States. That is also his website, conventionofstates.com. Mark is one of the, well, I would say the hawks for our freedom. And he and his organization do an amazing job. You need to get a hold of it and get the little booklet dealing with the Convention of States. Brother Mark, good to see you, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be with you. Hey, thanks for bringing up the plight of the family farmer. We've got them in our family, and we know how rough it is out there.
Yeah, I come from that background, and we need to wake up with it. I mean, it's more serious than perhaps we realize.
Yeah, my son married into a farm family in Missouri, and so we get a kind of an intimate look inside of operating a large family farm. And even the title of the book was so apropos. I understand these guys have lots of land, and people look at them like they're wealthy people, but they've got the land, and then the operating costs on these farms are incredible. The risk is super high. And I think we better start paying attention before we lose that resource in our country.
Amen to that. Sorry for the technical problems earlier, so I only have you for one segment. But let me just ask you this. Given your background, your love, your passion for this country, how do we, in the true sense of the word, from your perspective, regain self-government?
Well, I think we have the tools to regain self-governance, and it's really an attitude about who's in charge in the country. And to put it in a biblical sense, you know, Perry, when I first became a Christian, I read Romans 13, and that we're supposed to essentially follow the governing authorities and do what they say. I didn't like it because I'm a rebel. And then one of my friends explained to me, well, we're the governing authorities in the United States of America. The people are sovereign. And so the question is, do we do the things that we have to do to take control? Of course, one of those is vote. And I encourage everybody, if you're not voting, you're not doing your basic civic duty. But there's so much more we can do. We can hold our elected officials accountable. We can talk to them regularly. We can pay attention to what's going on in the legislature. We can run for office ourselves. We can help people run. And then, of course, my passion is we can call a convention of states to restrain the federal government and return the power to the people in the states.
Do you see an awakening for that?
Yeah, I do. I see self-governance coming up all over the country. And by the way, it's on both the left and the right. I, of course, come from the right, but I do see people on the left who feel the same way. They want to take charge of their own lives and their own destiny. And one of the things that we're talking about here, Perry, is the idea of federalism, that New York should be New York. If they want to elect Mondami, I think that's insane that they would consider doing that. But that's up to New York City, and I think Texas should be left to be Texas. We do that by taking the power away from the federal government and giving it back to the people. Then the states can be themselves, local jurisdictions can be more themselves. And then I think what it comes down to ultimately, and this is something I've been grappling with lately, is really a fight between urban areas and rural areas. The politics, the culture, the people are very different in those two different types of areas across all the states.
We call those concrete cowboys.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. You know, I had this thought this week, Perry. I've been this month 3 times in Colorado and just driving all over Colorado, from the most rural parts of Colorado where you see Trump signs everywhere, you see churches everywhere, faith is open everywhere. And then you go into Denver, which is exactly the opposite. And in my mind, I'm grappling with this question: how do you deal with that when the urban areas rule the politics of the state and they rule over the rural areas? How do we deal with that situation? I don't have a good answer to that, but I'm working on it.
Well, isn't that the issue? I mean, if you look down to just the battle of the states, and states that are in play at the last minute of elections, there are always these states that have these large cities.
Yeah, and the large cities, of course, tend to skew more liberal, more Democrat. And there's a reason for that. I think it's actually a logical reason if I'm trying to be empathetic to my opposition. And that is, if you live in a city, you require a lot more regulation. If people are closely packed together, living together, you need more regulations. A great example is you need a sound ordinance in a city that keeps you from playing music late at night. If you live in a rural state like Montana, in most places in Montana, it doesn't matter. You might disturb your cows, but you're not going to disturb anybody else. And so different types of regulations are appropriate for different kinds of jurisdictions. The question is, how do we split a state apart in a way that makes that work?
And again, Mark, I apologize for the short visit, but let me come back to your passion, the Convention of States. And I know you got more and more states looking into this. Give us an update.
Yeah, so there are currently 19 and a half states that have passed the Convention of States resolution. I say half because North Carolina's passed it in their House. The pressure's on to get it done in the Senate. I would encourage any of you that might be watching from North Carolina, contact your senators, ask them to pass the resolution. We keep passing it in the House. I think the Senate's conservative. They just keep refusing to bring it up. So that would take us to state number 20. That obviously would be a big threshold on our way to 34.
That's wonderful. So here we are, 249, heading to 250 next year, which is going to be pretty incredible. And the first 6 months of this new administration has almost been consequential in so many ways. What's your 30,000-foot view?
Yeah, I think this is the most consequential president, certainly in my lifetime, maybe in modern American history. I would argue more consequential than Reagan, and I'm a huge fan of Reagan, so it's hard for me to say that. But Trump is actually getting more done and pursuing more aggressive, conservative, America First policy than anybody in history. You only have to look at what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on with job creation, what's going on with real wages, what's going on in our economy right now. This guy has a big vision for making America great again, and he's executing on that vision. I hope to see him continue that. By the way, SCOTUS ruling in this week and stopping these nationwide injunctions is going to help accelerate that agenda. I'm looking forward to the next 3 years.
So that decision alone, and 3 hours, 4 hours ago, the BBB gets through.
Yeah.
This is big stuff. What's your take on the bill?
Okay, I mean, I think I have a philosophy, which is a bill can be big and it can be beautiful, but it can't be big and beautiful. And so I don't love it, but I also am a political realist, and I believe that's the best we could possibly do under the circumstances. It does something that's critically important, which is preserve the Trump tax cuts from his first administration. Without that, I think the economy would have cratered. So that was sort of the primary goal. There's some other good things that happen in this bill as well. I don't want to sell it short. But there's also a lot of garbage in the bill, and we're going to have to elect a whole bunch of better people and call a convention of states if we want to get control of some of the things like this long-term spending problem.
Well, let me say to our viewers and listeners, go to Mark's website, conventionofstates.com, order up the little booklet there on the amendment there, and I tell you what, he sends them out by the dozens, and you can pass them around. If you're having meetings with maybe within your, local committees, get a handful of these and hand them out by going to conventionofstates.com. Mark, I want to say thank you for your passion and your friendship as we head into the fourth. It feels like we have hope again.
I've got a lot of hope. Of course, as a Christian, I've always got hope, but I have hope for our country here in the short term. I think things are turning around, and thanks to guys like you, Perry, are out there on the air talking about this stuff all the time. Thank you for being in the fight.
Okay. Thanks, buddy. God bless. Happy 4th.
God bless.